Hello, welcome to the Red Room. Today we're going to do a new overview of Wretched RPG for two reasons. Well, for three reasons. First, because there's been some updates to the book since the last one. Second, because we had some people picking up the book, some new people at the store. So this is good to do a new overview of Wretched. And three, because we want to.
Yeah, that's basically that. But I would say that the most important reason is since the last time the book went free, and then after those reviews, more people came to pick it up. So I think it's a good thing. Most of those people that pick up free books, they probably never look at them, and maybe we'll have some opportunity to talk a little bit about how Ratchet works and how the rules and the mechanics and all that.
Mhm.
So first thing, it's an OSR game. So it's a D20 game. And now let's start sharing the screen so we can.
Can I say something before you start sharing? Well, you can start share the screen anyway, but before we start the overview, it's
Yeah.
an OSR game, and I know that for some people that are not really into the OSR, they're gonna go, but there are some characteristics that are not typical to the OSR, right? And we will go.
And that's also a reason because some people that like OSR games will
Yes.
go, we like not to please anyone. Not our aim is not to please everybody. Our aim is to please no one.
Well,
So
it's
that
to please ourselves,
yeah.
and we don't believe in raw.
Okay. So
So you take whatever you want from the rules, and now carry on.
exactly. So Ratchet will play game, as you know. This is a generic set of rules. You can play any kind except I would say extremely powerful characters like superheroes or gods or demigod. Excluding that, you can play any genre using this set of rules. Now, there's another thing about Ratchet. It was created to play characters that are anti-heroes. Now it's not exactly like that, but it's still. If you play our settings, you'll probably be inclined to play something like that. But
And that's another thing that people go, and probably we'll do a
yeah,
video about that again one
exactly.
of
But
these days.
we still can in this one say that anti-heroes don't have to be nasty,
Hmm.
extremely nasty people. You don't have to play debauched drug addict. You can, but
But you don't have to,
you
exactly.
don't have to. Yeah. So you can play. Let's say the first character that is mentioned in the book is El Capitano Atriste. It's in this page. That character is an anti-hero, and many other characters that are famous, and let's say that even Conan is a
Hmm.
anti-hero, and Solo is an anti-hero. Uh,
Well, Indiana Jones,
Indiana
another one,
Jones,
is
yeah,
also an
yeah,
anti-hero.
yeah, yeah. So many protagonists aren't exactly for different reasons they are anti-heroes, or even if they aren't specifically the idea of an anti-hero, but usually it's someone that has some flaws, right? Or you can even play that a character that is on the way to becoming a hero, but not quite. So that's it. But anyway, we started as a game for anti-heroes, and at that moment there was a characteristic in this game that we are going to talk about next, which is our version of uh, the alignment. Instead of having uh, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, all that, well, etc. Or in not instead, but uh, accumulating to that, you have our specific way of handling the alignment or the behavior or the moral of the character, which is the deadly sins and the virtues. Initially, there were only deadly scenes because the characters were meant to be exclusively anti-heroes. Since the game expanded and then now there are much more settings, um, we offer the two possibilities. So you can pick one deadly sin, or you can pick one virtue, or you can pick one of each, and then you balance the character between the flaws and the virtue.
And something that I'm going to add here that I think at the same time, well, of course, because we also have a boon and for a virtue. A virtue can be as encumbersome as
Yes,
a sin, and you can even also make the character wretched because being two virtues,
mhm,
it's not good.
exactly. So when you choose one of these things, one of these sins or virtues, you have one bane that is a penalty for your character, which is related to the specific sin. Um, which means that when you are presented with an opportunity to sin, you'll have to do usually a wits roll, a wits saving throw, to resist the temptation to do something bad. And there's an optional boon which gives you a bonus related to rolls that make sense according to the sin. So, for example, you have these examples here. Wrath, you have you can, if the game master allows, have a intimidation bonus, and greed would give you bonus to buying stolen material or illegal stuff. Okay, so the things I'm not going to explain what they are. You already know. And then the virtues. We chose these seven. There are other options. You can choose the other one. Irrelevant which one do you choose. Example. The way it works is exactly the same. The brain gives you a penalty, which you left, or a required rule to override a specific behavior. And there's an optional boon, which will give you a bonus. I think it's always +1 to a roll. Uh, Again, related to the virtue. You can have both, or you can have just one, or you can have neither. It's just your your choice. We have introduced it. This is not in the core book, but in the setting, we have introduced other options, which we call the worldview. Those can be accumulated to the sins and virtues, especially if you choose just sins or just virtues, because if you are using both, it might become too complicated. But if you just
But
pick the
they are also aligned to the setting, right? So each setting
yeah,
has its own worldview.
yeah, not all, because I only started doing that after a while, but yes, some of them I have, and so they are kind of, well, it's difficult to explain because it depends on the setting. But it's something like this. So you have uh, kind of an axis, and on each extreme is one uh, characteristic, and then you start in the middle or you start on one side. If you start in the middle, you have no bonus, no penalty. If you start on one of these, or in one side, you have one kind of bonus and one kind of penalties. And if you start on the other side, so for example, I would say like scientific or primitive, something like that. So, and in the middle would be like common person that is the rationalist, but also believes in some superstition on all. So that's the kind of that's also an opportunity to escape the usual alignment, but that those ones aren't mentioned here. Okay, let's start by one of the things that make this a little bit different from the usual generic OSR game. That we introduced something here that is also an old mechanic, but we could call it old school, but it's not this particular style of old school, which is having tables to roll for background. So you have an origin, which will determine your character's social class, and also there's also a connected profession job. uh, that can be either your character, former profession, former job, or the character's parent, or just a family trait. It depends, and it's the player's choice when rolling. And then after doing this, you roll for a life path, which are events from the character's life. So you start by rolling 1d6, and then you choose from, and then roll again a d10. So, the first d6 determines your social class. You can be destitute, you can be struggling, comfortable, wealthy, rich, and rich. And in each of these categories, you have a d10 table that you can roll also, and this will give you that profession that I mentioned. So, for example, if you are rolling a wealthy character, you will immediately have um, a +1 to magnetism. Magnetism is charisma. We rename the attribute, and then you roll for a profession. Let's say that you roll socialite. That you can assume that your character might be a socialite.
Mhm.
That's not something. That's not a family trait. So it's probably even though yeah, it can be. You can be the Kardashians and everybody. Okay.
Well, yeah, you can be from a social family, or
Yeah. So
but socialite is good because you can, or a playboy because you can still have a job.
yeah, you have
But
a
if
job,
you're healthy, you don't need a job.
of course. Um, that's why you have several options. You like Playboy, Playgirl, and all that. They are mostly unoccupied professions or occupations, but a little bit different. Okay, so this is just obviously this is optional. Uh, this will give you penalties or actually bonuses, um, and advantages basically. But if you don't use it, it affects nothing. Now, the life path is different for each of the games, and this is basically a possibility of defense in your previous life. It's something that the traveler and other games.
Well, it's useful if people are rolling. If someone is coming up with an idea for a character in the background, is not going to need it. But if someone is just rolling the characters and wants to create a character that's completely random, in this case, this helps create the background of the character.
Yeah, you can just roll on this and then come up with a story that makes sense. So you roll 1d3 times. So you roll 1d4 and you subtract 1 or do something else. Uh, Divide 1d6 by 2 or whatever. And then you roll the amount of time on this table for 1 to 3 events. And it depends on these are just examples. Each of the settings has a specific table. So we included here the tables for all the settings that existed at the moment. More will come, and this will be out of date. But for now, this is
It's
just
already out of date.
yeah.
It doesn't have
So
interbellum.
exactly. So this is just an example. So if you have the setting books, then you you will probably use the other ones because they are more complete than this. Okay, let's go to the attribute. Then now you start again. So you must start again. Now you start with the standard OSR rules, or almost standard. Our attributes aren't exactly the same, but they are mostly the same thing. So you have muscle, which is strength, brains, which is intelligence, wit, which is wisdom, agility, dexterity, toughness,
Toughness,
um,
constitutions,
constitution, magnetism, which is charisma, and sex appeal, which is uh,
comeliness for those who use
prevalent,
it.
but yeah, not everybody uses it. But yeah, we found that comeliness makes sense in a wretched game, and I like that having that attribute. That is not exactly the same thing as charisma.
Mhm.
Be charismatic and ugly as fuck, and like, so why did it change the names? Well, there was that OGL thing, and then I decided that even though obviously the, the those attributes aren't aren't owned by Wizards of the Coast, but there were other things that were a little bit catchier. We didn't know if we had to change, so we decided to change
Create the
more things.
distance.
This one, yeah, and this one's makes sense because I like the sound of the wretched character having muscle instead of strength and
Hmm.
brains instead of intelligence. Which I prefer. Agility, the same thing.
Hmm.
Toughness and constitution is basically,
Toughness is more wretched, also.
I guess, so, yeah. And sex appeal is much better than
Hmm.
comeliness.
Yeah, comeliness is not good.
I don't really like comeliness. No one uses that word. So okay, now we have several ways of rolling a character. And this is mostly, except the veteran mode, the other ones are common. You either just roll it 3d6, one for each of the attributes, and then you stick with it, or you just roll them all again. Um, and this is the canon for the month, which will give you a character that might be not really good, and that you have to uh, do some gymnastics to find what that character should be, because sometimes rolling like this will give you a strange character. You can be very strong but very evil
Hmm.
and also stupid, but very charismatic. So we'll have to find what to put this character in. Um, there's an optional rule which is if the score is below, if one of the scores, the lowest one is below 8, you can reroll it. So let's say you roll a 1, or you can
Hmm.
roll a 1 on each dice, so you'll have a 3. It's probably not that common, but it can happen. You can roll
Yeah.
a 3. A 3 is very bad, so you can just reroll it. Safety net mode means that you roll 46 and then ignore the lowest. And then there's the veteran mode, in which you are supposed to play a veteran character. And this is another thing that diverges it from the usual OSR game. We are not expecting this to be your main game, because that's obvious. People have their games, their favorite games that they are playing for many years, for decades, and especially in OSR,
Hmm.
you are playing D&D or something else, and that's the game you play. But then you decide to try Wretched. Well, maybe you don't want to start a character from the beginning, so
Hmm.
you just pick veteran mode, and you already start with a character that is advanced, and from this is just an option starting from the fifth to the seventh level, but you can start it at the third or even at 10th level if you want to just play it once.
But I think it's also better with, well, the whole Wretched team in the idea of playing anti-heroes. It makes sense that the anti-hero is someone older
Yeah,
that
so
became an anti-hero or became a bit bitter because
exactly.
of life.
You're not expecting to play the wretched character in the hero's journey. He's already in the middle of his journey, whether it's the hero's or an anti-hero's journey. So if you pick a veteran character, you can just start it as a better developed character. So you'll start on an upper scale of experience, and you'll have more skills and all. Okay, so I don't have to explain what
Yeah.
these things are. They are the same.
Another
Health
thing
is
different, yes, is that we changed.
we change alphabet. Instead of each point, it's called health. Um, then we have this is the step 5 species or races, depending. We don't mind having the race, obviously. Uh, in some games, it's supposed to be a race, and others, it's supposed to be
Mhm.
a species. It depends. In the end, we can use the name you want,
Well, and this is a list of generic races that, of course, they're not applied to all the settings.
of course. And some of them are specific to the Wretched verse,
Hmm.
like the Adityan. Uh, others not aren't, like the androids, clones.
The
Children,
dwarfs,
yeah, the children of the night are kind of specific, but you can compare them to Clive Barker's
basically, they're
Caval
mutants.
or Caval or the other one. What's the other name? Like Caval and
Children of Nightbreed,
Nightbreed.
Nightbreeds. They're basically mutants.
Yeah, they
in
basically
this
are
case.
weird mutants. Then we have some alien races, Sulfur, Ustora, and the Jagarni and the Clarish. Those are just
Hmm.
specific to our universe, but you can compare them to some typical alien races, the gray and the green lizard and all that. Incubus, succubus are demons, obviously, or in this case, half demons. You can play half orc and half elf, or elf. You can play vampires, we call them vampire, but the same thing. Or Loup-Garou, which is the same thing as. And that's basically it. We have now several pages dedicated to this. We have tables to rule mutations from
Hmm.
mutants. You have explanations and about each of the possible races slash species with their special abilities and powers and disadvantages and all. This will only be needed if you are playing in a setting, obviously, that is supposed to have more than humans. Some of our settings, by default, uh, you should probably only play human
Well,
characters.
we personally actually prefer to play humans in most of the time,
Yeah.
even in fantasy.
The next thing is what we call occupation and archetype, which is usually known as class.
Hmm.
And I think it's subclass,
Yes.
but it's basically the same. So you have a set of several occupations, which are the equivalent to classes. You have assassin, common citizen. Common citizen is an optional occupation um, that we introduced as an occupation for horror, in which you can start as a common person and then you decide if you want to become one of the other class.
Hmm.
But you can also play a common citizen and just play it as a common citizen forever, which means that you can play a character that is a common profession, like a janitor, for example, or an accountant or something like that, and you can just play it like he is and he or she. But if you prefer, you can evolve that character into one of the other
Hmm.
classes, which are assassin, cyborg, conjurer, investigator, mesmerist, man of action, pilot, performance, analyzer, psychic, rogue, and scholar. The the archetypes are specializations like a cop as a specialization of investigator.
Hmm.
These are mostly examples. In each of the setting books, you'll have specific archetypes, not occupations. The occupations are these ones, and
Hmm.
even though there's a possibility of introducing new ones, I think there were, yeah,
I think
we
so.
already,
In
yeah,
New Flash, there's probably, if not on the others, there's new occupations.
we introduced new occupations which are specific to the setting, but usually what you have is more archetypes. Uh, some of them similar to this one, some very different.
But more setting specific.
Yeah. So each of the archetypes and the occupations give you some requirements and bonuses and not penalties. So
Hmm.
in this case, it's just a set. So you have each occupation has a requirement. Then you have a starting bonus skill, which is determined by one attribute. You have something that's called a skill set, which is
Hmm.
basically a
Recommended skills.
recommended skill for you to choose in the next. And then you have a choice
Wow.
of three perks. In this game, there are perks and drawbacks, and each of the archetype offers you six options, and this one you should choose them from here. A list of six perks, and you should
And a unique feature
and a new feature, which is one advantage that the character has, and
or a special ability or.
mhm, which is related to the archetype. But these are the it's easy to understand what this is. The table for experience and evolve. So when you gain experience, the experience is also simplified. we didn't like those very high numbers, and
Yeah.
so we this is kind of a division by 100. So you will until the so you have obviously larger numbers here on level 10. But at the beginning, it's this simple. Most occupations have a health based on the toughness score, and you are upgraded each level by one, and in some cases two, like the assassin, the man of action. This means that your characters aren't as tough,
Mm-hmm.
as undefeatable as in a common OSR game. These aren't supposed to be truly superheroes or something like that, or
Yeah, this is supposed to be a low level game,
yeah,
not for epic heroics.
right, yeah.
Heroics.
Okay, so you have a bonus skill which goes up according to level, and by each level you have this one is predetermined from a list. These ones you can choose it. Um, so you begin in this case you begin with two skills plus the bonus skill plus a bonus that is calculated based on the your most important occupation's ability, which is defense.
Agility in this case, if
In
I'm
this
not
case, yes,
mistaken. Yes. Yeah,
probably.
exactly. It's written below.
And that's basically that. Now here, these ones are the conjurers, which are the magicians, are a little bit more complicated. They have a different explanation because of they are different classes
Mhm.
from the other one. Okay, so let's go a little bit ahead of this. Many pages for because there are many
Okay,
tables as
yes.
well. Okay,
Skills.
then the skills. Okay, so the skills here, as you'll notice, are according to things the the occupation and archetype you choose, and um, your main attribute, which depends on occupation. So basically, it all ends in the same. Um, and you have a list of skills from which you can choose at will or just within
Hmm.
uh, the options that the game master gives. How are skills used? Well, you have for each point that you spend on a skill, you have one level at the skill. You can go from 1 to 5. Some skills are called the basic skills. Everybody has them, like climbing and
Hmm.
hiding and sneaking. These are things that everybody can do. So everybody has them at
That's
level one.
fun.
But you can improve them if you really want. Even though all of these skills have equivalent
Exactly. Like
uh,
sneaking has stealth
yeah, so
with the
stealth
equivalent.
replaces that, and well, yeah, so using a skill is done by rolling 1d20 as usual and adding the value from your skill level, which can go from 1 to 5, and then adding your attribute bonus, which is from 1 to 3.
Hmm.
It can be a penalty as well, depending on the value you
In
have
this
in.
case, when we didn't connect an attribute with each skill because it
Yeah,
depends of the way you are using the skill.
exactly.
It depends of the context.
Yeah, in certain times. So, for example, one skill that usually is used only for one thing, like small arms or rifle,
Hmm.
usually used to shoot it. But if you are trying to intimidate someone at gunpoint, instead of adding it to agility, you could add it to magnetism
Hmm.
and use it as an intimidation rule. That's one common example. And then it depends if you are doing an opposed roll against someone or just trying to do a test. you're trying to do that no one is opposing you, then in that case, what you have to surpass is a target number, which goes from very simple, you don't have to roll it, to a simple and up to an impossible roll. Of course, you don't have to follow this.
Mhm.
These are just the examples, but you can roll an 11, or the target number could be an 11, or it could be a 5, or it could be a 25 if the game master finds that some some specific text is so difficult because the modifiers are also applied here. So that they're on top of this target number that is the basic for each of the classes, simple, average, difficult, etc. The game master can apply modifiers, or in that specific situation, it's even more difficult. So you have mental, physical, and social skills. This is it, it's kind of important because when you're creating a character,
Mhm.
there are some modifications according to which kind of these three groups. Now there are rules for cooperation. Um, if several people are trying to do the same task altogether, this means that you can apply a bonus if the helper succeeds in its role, but
But
if
if he
just
fails, you have a penalty.
exactly. So opposed roles, you know what they mean. You are trying to do something, and the other person is also trying to do something, and then you calculate who did it better. Um, okay, the basic skills are the ones we mentioned before. So climb, hide, use language, search, and sneak. Um, this is an explanation about avoidance rules. Avoidance rules is another thing that changed name, usually called saving throw. Other than that, it's the same thing. You have to roll under the
Mhm.
value. Usually, or almost always, it's done with attributes. You roll under an attribute, and if you roll under or equal to or under, you pass, unless there's a modification. Um, if you roll above, you fail. This little table here is about the extra points that you gain at character creation
Mhm.
according to your main attribute. So this is you can have from no modifier at all to 7 extra skill points. So this is important. These 7 points are pretty much a big thing for characters, I think.
Okay,
This
so
is a
this is the
description.
division of the skills for the different types.
So it has descriptions of what you do with the skills, how to roll and roll, and some have specific things. Like, for example, we have special maneuvers for martial arts. Most of the things don't aren't this detailed, and you don't have
Mhm.
to use any of it. Remember that this is a generic
Mhm.
game, so we have to make use.
Accommodates for
Yeah,
a lot of chances.
yeah, many different styles. So
We cannot.
you,
It's impossible to cover all, but we try to cover as much as possible.
now this is another thing that even though it's not earmarked as optional, it is optional because it affects nothing. The perks and the drawbacks. So it's sometimes called merits and flaws or advantages and disadvantages. Those things that you have that they aren't skills, they aren't attributes, they are uh, perks
Mhm.
and drawbacks. Things that can help or hinder your character in certain situations.
So you always have one for free on character creation, depending on your archetype. And you can buy more, but for that you're gonna have to have drawbacks.
The drawbacks, unless you rolled an event, a life event that gives you a drawback at the beginning, the drawbacks will be optional.
Mhm.
You only have to have drawbacks if you add more than one perk. If you choose just one perk, the free perk, that's it. So it doesn't have to be that complicated. You can complicate by choosing
Well, yeah.
more
Well,
perks.
we wouldn't recommend choose a lot of drawbacks because, well, the drawbacks are a bit, and even the perks, but more not only that they give disadvantages, but they also some are related to the role playing itself, right?
Yeah,
So we probably don't want to create a character that is completely insane. That
yeah.
can become unplayable. Too many drawbacks can make a character almost unplayable.
Since Wretched has a lot of options fighting options that are horror or supernatural or adjacent to that, we use a lot of
Hmm.
drawbacks that are mental drawbacks. So if you use many of those, your character might become
Yes.
unplayable. And remember that you will probably, if you are playing a horror game, you will probably gain some of these
Hmm.
on-failed rules, on-failed fear rules. That's basically our sanity rules. So be careful with that. Now, this is the descriptions again. The penalties and then the bonuses that you get from perks and drawbacks. A little bit of description of what they mean. This is a raging
Aging.
table, which is divided by race or species.
Hmm.
It's in the middle of this because there's one disadvantage that says that's called old. So makes sense to be here. These are just for superheroes, which are a little bit different, and
Hmm.
in vigilantes they are chased.
In more detailed, right?
Yeah, this is another thing that is kind of new. We don't like doing the accounting for money, so we have rules of acquisition. This means that when you buy something, unless it's something that is pretty inexpensive, you'll do a roll instead of spending coins, gold coins, or
Or
credits, or whatever,
credits. Yeah.
or dollars, or whatever. So you roll a d20 as usual, and then you add or subtract some modifiers. One of the modifiers is related to social class. It goes from elite, which is the upper class, which is +3, to destitute, the lower class, -3. There are other possibilities for modifiers that have to do with the skills. For example, if you are buying something on the black market, you might add streetwise.
Hmm.
If you are haggling with a merchant, you might add magnetism and it depends. So then you compare that to roll to the acquisition target number of what you want to buy, and if you roll equal to or plus, you can buy it. If you can't buy it, you can try it again later. Now you have here a table for descriptions of weapons, which are part of it. It's usually what in a an equipment chapter what takes the most part
Hmm.
of it. There's something here that is also kind of important. The range of the weapons is a little bit different
Hmm.
instead of
Use
meters.
zones to make it more
Uh,
cinematic.
so you have melee zone, you have range attack zone, and out of range attack zone. These are basically close range, medium range, and far, which kind of makes this a little bit simpler, I think.
Hmm.
And for damage, it's mostly the same thing you find in any OSR game, and rates of fire is basically the same thing as well. Okay, so let's go faster.
Armor, it's the same. So,
Yeah, but so the only thing that you can say that is different is the name. You call it, instead of calling it armor class, we call it defense. And this is scalable upwards. So you
mhm,
have you start at 10. This is the base level of armor of defense in this case that every person has, unless uh, you have a bonus or
mhm,
a penalty from a field or something something like clothing or
mhm,
armor. The armor replaces the rest. So even though the agility bonus is still applied. If you are using the suit of armor, for example, in this case you have a 20, you might have a bonus from agility. And that's basically that, and that's easy and the usual thing. It's not different. Then we have a table for
implant.
implants,
Yeah.
cybernetic implants, and biotech implants. And
Of
this is
course, it only applied if you're playing a futuristic game or a
or
sci-fi.
These are optional rules for equipment wear and tear, the kind of thing that would you use for a post-apocalyptic game,
Hmm.
maybe a hard sci-fi game or horror game,
Well,
perhaps.
it could be could be even for fantasy if you want to make
Yeah,
the game harder and more deadly.
well,
I would say
so
more realistic in a way.
exactly. So the the equipment will have in this case a rating. That rating uh, it, it goes from 0 to 10, and then you have penalties to use that when you are using that piece of equipment according to the damage that it suffered. So at 0 it becomes unusable, and then you have to buy something or repair it if it's possible. And this is these are those. Now let's go to experience
Hmm.
points. The experience
It's
points,
also a bit different.
yes. In this case, so the first thing here is experience points based on the red commandment. This is if you are playing with the devices or scenes as your as your alignment system. So in this case, you'll gain experience points for having for actions that aren't right at all. So one or no one,
Hmm.
kill. Well, kill is something that some games use. If you kill something, you'll gain
Hmm.
experience points for that. Stealing, um, reducing. In this case,
Hmm.
not necessarily the neighbor's wife; it could be the neighbor's husband.
Yes, being selfish,
Being selfish, surviving, uh,
playing the role.
playing the role. This is not
Yes,
pleasant.
yes, it's not.
This can be used even if you're playing a character. There's a similar list,
Hmm.
but reverse for the virtues instead of sins. In this case, you are supposed to be virtuous, so you gain points from virtuous actions. So you see, this is
Hmm.
not necessarily a game to play wretched, but now
And I would say that the wanted, sorry, that you can rest a bit your throat. The wanted level is something that, and probably people may be thinking, oh, but then because if I'm playing a wretched character, my characters can just be too wretched and just destroy everything. No, because we have something to balance that.
that is the wanted
Hmm.
level. So the wanted level starts at 1. This means that your character is a lawful citizen, even if he's a wretch, he's still lawful citizen. No one wants to arrest him, and it goes up according to the actions you do. So eventually, the character can become unplayable because they are so infamous, so feared, so wanted by so many people that they
They
can.
can go anywhere. They can't, yeah, basically.
Uh, to balance this, there's the notoriety, which means that in
Hmm.
certain situations, the fact that you are wanted might be used in intimidation and streetwise
Hmm.
rules in your benefit. Um, of course, that's a benefit that comes with a great cost. That is
Hmm.
your liberty and your options to travel and all that. Wanted level can be used even if you are playing virtuous characters, but it was meant
Hmm.
for the wretched one. These are now optional wretchedness. These are optional rules. Most of them to make the game easier. So you have the wretched tool, which will give you points that you can spend to reroll dice, or not reroll dice, to gain bonuses.
Bonus.
Um, and then you have some other things. So the wild dice is a mechanic that can be used depending on the type of game. It can be used as a benefit or as a as a difficulty. So the wild die is supposedly a different color die or different shape or whatever. Um, well, not different shape because they have to be the same kind of sided, but they can have a pattern of them. But anyway, it's a different die that you can differentiate from the other. And if you roll six, assuming that you are rolling a six-sided dice, then you re-roll that die. If it's a d20, it's not 20. This can be done when you are rolling something for your character, or it can be rolled by the game master against the character. So exploding damage is also something that could be used to turn the game more deadly.
I
So
think we used it once and it was also didn't went well for the players.
yeah, it's kind of deadly, I think. So if you roll when rolling damage, if you roll the maximum value on that dice, you will re-roll it. So explode the and that means that since the characters here don't have that many health points or hit points, if you want
Mhm,
to call it that, it's easy to die with it. Wretched Man of Action gives a little bit more option for um, or bonuses to Man of Action characters. This is optional because this necessarily will create some advantage to
mhm.
Man of Action character. If you don't mind that, then you can use it.
I guess probably should be used. Well, I guess I would use it if everybody's playing a man of action, because if not, one player would have advantages that
Well,
the other one doesn't.
unless the people playing
Yeah,
don't
don't
mind.
mind.
Okay, so this is the combat section. I think this is mostly the same thing as in other OSR games. So you
Yes,
roll
I
for
don't think we
initiative.
changed it a lot, right?
Not really, not really. Well, there are some specific things, but you basically roll for initiative. You do movement. You do attacks that are ranged or magical or psionic, and then you do melee attack. Then you have those uh, usual things in OSR games like surprise, which can be ruled even before the encounter starts. And okay, as we mentioned before, there are different kinds of zones that replace specific distances in meters, and this is more explained in more detail here in the movement. Yeah. And then we'll have here several rules for combat, like types of cover and the modifiers that you can have from light
Hmm.
and all those options. Hit locations is something that sometimes it doesn't exist. Now we have three types: range combat, or melee, and an armed combat, and punching
Hmm.
that is unarmed, but it's a specific type of rule because you usually do not punch people in the leg.
Hmm.
But with that, it's something that sometimes happens. I don't really like that.
Yeah. Oh, you punch that person in the leg.
It's kind of unusual, and maybe we can avoid it. Um, these are the kinds of different kinds of combat that actions that you can do in combat, and there are small rules for duels that simplify the duel compared to the typical combat. As a specific wildlife here for damage. You have rules for critical hits, and these are a little more expanded than usual for uh, darker games.
Hmm.
Even if it's fantasy, you want to have some more description, more detail to
Hmm.
the kind of damage that you have.
We
And
have
so,
a table for each type of attack,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So how do you do critical hit? It could be a natural 20, as usual, but it can also be if you are specifically targeting a small body part. A small body part is the ones that have a +3 penalty, so it could be the head, an eye, even, or ear, or a hand, or foot, or shooting at the heart, or shooting at the kidney, or something like that. When you roll a critical hit, then you should roll on a specific table for that, and it depends uh, what you are using. for doing damage. It could be a blade, it could be a firearm, it could be fire damage or corrosive damage, and maybe even other types that are not here, but they can uh, appear in the setting book. This is even more detailed
Mm.
optional if you are called. The other ones are for typical typical damage when you roll a 20, and this is just for
All
aim
shots.
shot. In this case, you don't roll, as if you call the shot,
Hmm.
you know where. In this case, it depends. It can be so. Let's say if you roll corrosive damage and you get a 3, it's a corrosive limb. If you are aiming the corrosive substance and you hit the person in the face, you can corrode well. It might
Hmm.
spill into the limbs, but it would be a facial damage. So you don't really have to roll, you just check it over here. There are rules for vehicle combat and
Hmm.
sailing, and some small rules for spaceship combat and modifications. Uh, they are expanded on the books that are,
Hmm.
for
In the
example,
appropriate books,
yeah, in the
let's say
appropriate
it like
books.
that.
Yeah, in the appropriate books, there are expansions on these rules. Damage and dealing is as its own rules. This is also kind of generic of natural healing or assisted healing. Um, Healing is obviously a skill roll, so we'll have different difficulties or target numbers that you have to roll, and using medicine or using first aid will give you different results. You have also rules for other kinds of the damage that are not combat related, like using drugs.
Hmm.
Even though not just damage here, you have the other penalties and bonuses from using drugs, and also other kinds of events like falling from
Hmm.
heights or diseases, hunger, thirst, and radiation, and vacuum, and all those things. Carousing is also something that is in several games. This is what you do when you are between adventures. If the character is available, you can say that you are doing a carousing roll. So you roll a d20. It is modified by your bonuses. That can be from negative
Hmm.
attribute or
Or the carousing
the
skill.
carousing skill. And then you consult the table, and it can be the general table, or it can be another one. If you are doing something like gambling, or just partying, or something else, it depends. There are different tables, and these are example. The setting books have their own
Hmm.
tables. You roll here, and what this means? It means that you can have good things or bad things in it. And so this is a risk. If you run the risk, you might be uh, you can get a good result and you can win some money, or you can lose money, or something else. In the core book, there are no monsters or creatures or whatever. There are some generic rules that you can use to create uh, creatures, and then the specific books will have the setting books will have their monsters and their creatures and their human opponents. And there's a plan to do a bestiary which will combine all those things, and it will be released this year, somewhere this year. Here in the
Fear
Senate is
and insanity.
kind of important here because my, mostly most of our set for
I was going to say even the ones that are not horror, like Wretched Bastards, the fantasy game, we personally tend to play it a little bit dark or very dark, and we ended up going in horror in most genres, even if it's not.
so this chapter starts with the Beyond, which is our supernatural realm. It doesn't go into a lot of description, just small
Mhm.
paragraphs, few paragraphs about it. Now you have different penalties according to different kinds of disturbing events. that go from simple combat up to encounters with supernatural and magic and psychic abilities and all that. As usual, it will roll, and then if you fail, you might have some kind of fear reaction, and if you fail for a large amount, you will get a drawback, a mental drawback. So this is, of course,
Hmm.
there are details here, but totally related to the insanity when you gain uh, too many disadvantages,
I
it
think
can
most
be
people would use it only for our.
yes, probably more for that. But now magic is also a little bit different from the usual. So it's not when we started, it was more like typical events in magic, but now we have distance from that because it's not really what we like. It started like that because we started with Wretched game,
Mhm.
but then other games came, and now magic here is performed by using ritual, not instantaneous. So you have generally 1 hour is needed per ritual, but if you are high level conjurer or magician, call it, it could be quicker than that, a lot quicker, but not instantaneous, never instantaneous. The minimum time that you can perform a ritual in is 10 minutes, no matter
Mhm.
what the modifier you have, because you have to prepare stuff. You have to use some kind of tools, magic tools, and you'll have to say some words, and that's it. Okay, so there's the possibility of being corrupted by magic. Um, so if you fail terribly, um, there's a critical fail, you will have to roll for corruption, and there are different modifiers for that roll. For example, if you are doing a human sacrifice to improve the ritual, this depends on the specific ritual you are doing. Some require sacrifices and some require human sacrifices. But if you are doing that, you'll have uh, more chance, more of a chance of being corrupt by whatever. But it's usually the beyond. It can be just a creature from the beyond. It's generally the beyond. Now you have different paths of magic. This is the tradition in
Mhm.
which your character is was trained. So you have urbanomancers and cybermancers, necromancers, traditional magicians, dream magicians, sex magicians, pagans, and shamans. And then there's the ritualist for each
Mhm.
of this. You can call them schools of magic. You can combine them. There are rules for that because there are some of those traditions that
Mhm.
are more likely to be paired. But you have one that is a major one, and most of your rituals will come from from the major school, and you can learn one or two spells from your secondary tradition of magic. Now, there are some spells that everybody can learn, which are the common rituals, and these ones are related to the beyond, so mostly to demons. Bind Major Demon is one of them, and then Bind Minor Demon, and summon and consecrate and all. Those are the basic things that everybody. I'm not going to say everybody can do, but everybody can try to do because all of those things require not all of those things, but the ones related to demons require rules,
Mhm.
usually opposed rules when dealing with the creatures from the beyond. And then within each of the schools, you'll have spells, spells, rituals
Rituals, their own
that are
specific rituals.
yeah, so they are related to the kind of tradition you are. We started by Cybermancer, alphabetically the first one. In here, basically, you have power over machine, and when we say machine, be different kinds of machines, or usually uh, high-tech
Hmm.
machines. Dream Magician is a little bit different because it works uh, in the dream realm, and the other ones are kind of common, like magician
Necromancer.
and necromancer. And the pagans,
Hmm.
they have nature related rituals, kind of not exactly the same thing as a shaman,
Hmm.
but kind of close. Um, there aren't tons of rituals. Perhaps it will be extended
Hmm.
in a magic. Uh, for now, this is what we have. This chapter here, or this sub chapter, is about creating magical artifacts and runes. So these are tables that will allow you to roll objects that appear in a campaign. Now,
Psychic talents.
psychic talents is also a big chapter here. It has rules for using the talents, and then you have psychic trauma is more or less the same thing as magical corruption. Not exactly the same thing. It's basically uh, the same type of event. And you have a list here as well of different powers or talents. So obviously, there are not psychics in every setting, and even conjurers there aren't. Uh, this is the last chapter about building settlement, which is something that can appear in apocalyptic games
Hmm.
or post-apocalyptic games. Different
Yes.
styles of it, or even
Oh,
in a fantasy
fantasy.
setting. Yeah,
Yeah.
even a fantasy setting. We
Or
don't
in
have anything,
or Western, for example. It can be
or
used in
even yeah,
country.
it could be yeah, as well. So it's very simplified. Maybe we'll have something later for creating larger things like rain. But for now, since this game is meant for characters that are from level 1 to
Hmm.
level 10, we decided to keep it like that. And it ends with a character sheet. So let's stop sharing now. It appears to be a lot of things in this kind of it because it's a generic game, and then
Hmm.
as a generic game, it has rules for things that you never use and stuff that is not required for every kind of setting. But we try to cover every option. Um, as we said in the beginning, lots of rules here are optional. Even
Hmm.
the terms supposed to be optional, you can make them optional,
Of course.
like the perks and drawbacks. They are considered to be part of the game, but then you can just ignore them. And rolling for origins and life events, so you can just roll for attributes and shoot kill, and you're good to go.
Well, for example, when we play, if we're playing a character that we already have an idea, I don't think we play for. If I already know the character that I want to play, I normally don't roll for life events because if not, they're gonna ruin the character. But if
Yeah,
I just want to roll a random character, then I use the life pet.
yeah. So what we believe in this kind of thing gives your character more meat over the bones, and so if you have the time, why not roll it? Roll for it. It would be better to have a character generator, maybe one day we'll have, not yet.
Yeah, but still, we rolled several characters, and it takes like
Yeah, that's
uh,
just if you are used to this kind of thing, it will take you 10
mhm.
minutes. Even if you never played this game, you can do it in 10 minutes if you are at least used to OSR games, because most of it is the same. Okay, so this is basically an overview of the rules. If you want a simpler way of handling this, there's a guide to Wretched that is also free at our store. Download it. It has a summarized version of the rules. Not everything is there,
Mhm.
but it is simplified. It includes the optional rules, some of the optional rules, some of these that we call optional, but it's just topics with points. It's a simple way, and it's also it can be used as I can't call it a cheat sheet because
Hmm.
it's a lot of
There's a
cheats,
lot of
but
shits.
it's a lot of cheats, but you can use it for cheating the rules. Not cheating, cheating your memory, your memorizing of the rules. Okay, so I think that's it, unless you want to add something to this.
No, well, I think the game is free, but I guess everybody already knows that. The game is free in PDF, of course,
Yes, of course, but
at our store. And
it's not really expensive because
yes,
you almost only pay for the printing. Uh,
yes, yes, because the book
you pay
is
about
free, we decided that the
15 cents.
physical copy it's
Yeah.
also not as free, but as free as we can put it. Because
It can be really free, but it's about 50 cents. So it's less expensive
mhm,
than many other books, and including ours, because we are not getting any
mhm,
royalties from there. So I think this is a too long explanation
mhm.
already for beginning, but it's difficult because we don't
If you want
use
to show the game and you want to show the rules, and you cannot just summarize.
yeah, we never use prompts for this.
Mhm.
We just read from the book. It's difficult to condense it just a couple of minutes. Well, I
Thank
doubt
you
that
for
you'll stay
watching.
to the end, but yeah, if you watched it, thank you for watching. Bye bye.